Get going. Thank you. So why do we do these speaker series events? Homelessness is a very complicated issue, and we know that one of the most important roles that we can play is helping our community better understand the unique complexities and challenges of this issue. So you will hear us say over and over that the solution to homelessness is simple. It's permanent, affordable housing combined with supportive services. But while that's very simple to say, it is not so simple to implement, nor is this population simple to serve. And the complexities of the work are not simple to understand. It's not as easy as just giving everybody a bed and a roof over their head. At Search, one of our core values is learning, and that means we also extend that value outside of our organization to all of you. So thank you all for being here to join us today to learn more. A couple of housekeeping items. Please, if you haven't already, use the chat box to introduce yourself and let us know how you connected to Search and how you came to be here today. Questions are welcome and encouraged as we go along through the session today. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. We will answer them at the end, and at the end too, we'll also be able to take everybody off mute, and you can just ask your questions there as well. But we'll be keeping our eye on the chat box as well. So Kelly D, if you want to go ahead and pop to the next slide. So before we turn it over to our outreach experts, I want to just provide some context for today's conversation. When you look at where we are as a city in terms of homelessness, we do an annual assessment, and based on the 2023 count, there were 3,270 people experiencing homelessness on that given day. And about 1,200 of those were unsheltered. So that 3,200 number represents sheltered and unsheltered. About 1,200 people were literally sleeping on the street. And over the course of the year, we are seeing about 26,000 people who will access services through our system. And so broadly speaking, these are low numbers compared to the rest of the country. But we, our hope is that we do not want to see anybody sleeping on our streets. And sometimes the optics can be a bit misleading. We'll talk a bit about that more later. Go ahead and advance this slide, Kelly. But we should be very, very proud of the work that we are doing here in Houston and the progress that we have made. Compared to other Texas cities, Houston is absolutely leading the way. When we started this work, back in 2011, Houston had one of the highest homeless populations in the country. Today, we have cut homelessness by over 60%. We have housed over 30,000 people. And when you look at what Houston has done compared to other Texas cities, you'll see, they are holding flat or even increasing, where we have had this drastic decrease. And while it is not apples and apples comparing different cities who have their own unique challenges, we do kind of like to look at the other Texas cities in comparing, because we have a lot of the same resources and same restraints. Next slide. So what is it that is making Houston so successful? There are a lot of factors, but one of the key ones is that we are not doing this work alone. Since 2011, the various different homeless service providers have come together in a group that we call the Way Home to accomplish what we've been able to accomplish. So years ago, each organization was working independently. It was confusing and difficult for clients. It was competitive for the organizations, and it resulted in a lot of duplication, gaps, and confusion. And so today we have streamlined our services and our efforts through very coordinated efforts as we work towards very focused goals of housing and stability. And Search is proud to be a key leader in this whole system. Next slide. And so Search is unique in that we provide the services and supports that help people truly change their lives. And we call this umbrella of support services case management. We follow this case management model and a housing first approach. And we do this through our various program areas, including outreach and engagement efforts, housing, and education. And our overall goal is to help people become and stay stably housed, increase their financial stability, and improve their health and overall quality of life. And this is true across all of Search's programs. But today we are here to focus on a very unique and special part of Search's work, outreach. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off to our in-house experts, Kelly Ward, who is our program manager for engagement and stabilization, and Allison Holman, who is our outreach team lead. Kelly?
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. I wanted to start us off with addressing some of the most common myths that we hear about homelessness in the hopes that we can help to dispel some of these. Because perpetuating myths and misconceptions about homelessness is harmful in our efforts to help individuals who are going through this experience. If we don't know the truth about the root causes of homelessness, then we can't design or fund or advocate for the right interventions and policies to make the changes we want to see in our community for these folks. So we're going to start off with addressing some of the most common myths about homelessness. There's quite a few, but we're going to focus on about 5 today for the sake of time. And then we'll share about how our street outreach teams are critical to this effort and end with ways how you can be a part of the solution too. So starting off with the first myth, you can move to the next slide there. One of the most common myths we hear is that people choose to be homeless. But the fact is that anyone can become homeless if they have no way to pay for housing and have no other resources or support. There are a variety of different factors that can lead to homelessness, such as job loss, which we saw a lot of during COVID. And of course, without a job, you can't pay your rent. The impacts of trauma, escaping intimate partner violence. I know years ago when I worked in our housing department doing case management, I worked with a woman who was telling me about her story and about how she became homeless. And she mentioned that her husband was physically and verbally abusive. And when she fled from the relationship, she moved to a whole different apartment and actually blacked out her windows with paint so her husband couldn't find her or see into the unit, where she was. But her husband kept finding her one way or another. So eventually she resorted to residing on the streets because that was the only way she felt that she could maintain some level of anonymity for her own protection. She didn't want to be homeless. She just didn't feel like she had any other options. And many people who are residing on the streets are not always aware of the options that are available to them. When we were on street outreach just the other day, we actually came across a man who was skeptical about whether we could actually help him find housing because of his background and a felony he had from over 20 years ago. And he felt very discouraged, like this one mark on his record from over 2 decades ago was continuing to impact his ability to move forward in life. And I reassured him that we've helped folks with all different kinds of backgrounds. And in talking with him and hearing his story and allowing him to vent his frustrations, he opened up to us and he was more receptive to our help and the information we had to share. So sometimes folks just need to know what options are available to them, how to navigate accessing those resources, and the encouragement and the hope that a different life is possible, that you don't have to feel like sleeping on a park bench is your only option. So sometimes folks just need to have the right information to know where to start. Next slide. The next myth we hear a lot is people experiencing homelessness are lazy and don't want to work. The fact is that many people experiencing homelessness want to work or do already work, but it's difficult to maintain a job if you have no way to clean your clothes or take a shower or have a phone with limited minutes or unreliable transportation. And even when clients do have a job, oftentimes these jobs are day labor jobs or seasonal temporary employment opportunities. And those paychecks are not enough to pay rent on a consistent basis, and certainly not in today's world with the lack of affordable housing. So if you get a job working the games at Minute Maid Park, what happens when the home team is done for the season, right? So for those of us who are more privileged, we're cheering on the hometown team because we want to see them win a championship. But keep in mind, you have some folks cheering on the hometown teams because they need the season to extend longer to keep getting a paycheck. So for them, it's a matter of making enough to survive. And on the flip side of that, we have clients who may have physical or mental health disabilities or learning disabilities that make it difficult to obtain or maintain employment altogether. In which case we do try to connect those folks with Social Security benefits, which we have a program for here at Search, Hold SOAR. Next slide. The next myth we hear is homelessness is due to mental health or substance abuse issues. The fact is that's not always the case. It's not the majority that individuals are struggling with mental health, but they are the ones we notice because their symptoms are more visible or pronounced. We might say, oh, I see someone talking to themselves or wandering through the streets. But another thing to keep in mind is that oftentimes physical health complications or unmanaged physical health conditions can present themselves as symptoms of psychiatric disease. We worked with a client in housing who had lived there for years without causing a disruption and was always on time with paying her rent until her mental health just started declining rapidly, like almost overnight. So we really thought that this was a mental health condition that she was just no longer managing. We thought maybe she stopped taking her medications, but she actually ended up being hospitalized. And come to find out, the physicians had determined that her cardiovascular conditions were causing abnormalities in her mental health functioning. And they felt confident that if she got the surgery that she needed for her heart, that those symptoms would resolve. And that was surprising even to us. So it's just a good reminder that we always have to rule out organic causes first before jumping to the conclusion that someone is struggling with mental health, when it may just mean they need to reconnect with a healthcare provider and get the proper treatment that they need. And as far as substance abuse goes, regardless of whether you are homeless or not, substance use oftentimes serves a functional purpose in the lives of folks who use. So that could be a coping mechanism for dealing with the trauma of living on the streets. It could be used as a way to stave off hunger so you don't feel the pain of being hungry when you can't get food consistently. Or it could be a way to protect yourself, such as using stimulants like amphetamines or methamphetamines to stay up all night because you have to be vigilant when you're living on the streets and watching out for anyone who's trying to steal your belongings. It could also be a way of just meeting your most basic human needs. I remember meeting a client on outreach who told me, I have to drink alcohol in order to sleep at night because the mosquitoes keep eating me up. So I think it can be easy to pass judgment on those who abuse drugs or alcohol, but when we take the time to truly understand what is at the root cause of why someone uses, we can actually treat what's really going on. So if you have to drink so you can stay asleep and not feel the mosquitoes biting your legs, then let's get you out of the elements and give you a safe place to live so that you can sleep peacefully at night. And then there's no need for the alcohol anymore. Next slide. The next myth is people experiencing homelessness should be able to pull themselves out of homelessness. The fact is, we are not dealt the same hand in life, and we do not have access to the same resources and opportunities as others. There are racial and educational disparities that continue to persist. Look, some people are able to overcome certain hardships on their own, sure. But you don't know what resources or opportunities came their way that might not always come to others. So we can't assume because one person did it that everybody can. That's just not the case for everyone. Next slide. And the final myth we will touch on is that there are plenty of adequate services and supports to help those experiencing homelessness. So you might be thinking, but wait a minute, Sandy just told us a few minutes ago about how far our Houston community has come in reducing homelessness. So there must be plenty of services and supports available. But unfortunately, the reality is that we are facing some very serious obstacles, such as a lack of safe and affordable housing. And we're also on the edge of a funding cliff as we are drawing near the end of the community's COVID funds that had funded so many of these homeless service programs and helped to subsidize rent so that housing could be affordable. And we are about to lose all of that. And of course, with less housing options, that means longer time that folks will spend living on the streets. Next slide. So to emphasize the biggest fact of all about homelessness, it's that homelessness is a housing issue. In our region, there is less than one affordable housing unit available for every 5 people who need it. So we need to take immediate action if we want to keep folks off of the streets and safely housed. Next slide. So this is just to summarize everything we have discussed. We hope these are your key takeaways from this discussion. So these can be talking points for you, right? Homelessness happens when people run out of options. Many people experiencing homelessness have a job or other source of income, but it's not enough to cover household living expenses. Mental health and substance use are risk factors, not causes. We are not all dealt the same hand in life. And most importantly, homelessness is a housing issue. We need more resources for safe and affordable housing. Next slide. So now that we've debunked some of the most common myths about homelessness, I want to share with you all about the work our street outreach teams are doing to help folks who are going through homelessness. So at Search, we have 5 outreach teams who are all doing very similar work, but with unique focuses. We have our PATH program, which is funded by SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. And this program is a type of focused outreach, which places an emphasis on getting our clients connected to mainstream mental health services within 90 days. And then we have our geographically bound outreach teams who specifically conduct outreach in the Midtown and downtown areas where we see a lot of individuals who are experiencing homelessness congregate, which makes sense because when you're homeless, you need to find some way to survive. So it helps to be as close as possible to where those services are, where you can get a warm meal, take a shower, do laundry, and those kinds of things. And then we have our encampment response outreach team. This team is specifically focused on decommissioning the encampment sites that you may have seen throughout the city, notably the closure right outside our building and on Chartres under 59, which we know is a very high-profile encampment given its visibility and size of the structures. And Allison will share a bit more about the team's work later in the presentation. And then finally, we have our newest addition to the group, which is our new Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program, or YHDP for short. So in the fall of 2022, several organizations in the community were awarded funds by HUD to serve youth and young adults, which is anyone under the age of 25 who's experiencing homelessness, which is a population that is oftentimes overlooked. They don't present in the same way or same areas that our older adult clients do. They're oftentimes couch surfing between friends and families' homes, or spending all-nighters at youth centers, or huddled up in hotel rooms. So they're not as visible. So it has been a very unique experience thus far to locate homeless youth and young adults, and requires a lot of in-reach to other youth serving systems, such as the school districts, the juvenile justice systems, and other youth serving providers. Next slide. So our street outreach teams practice what's called progressive engagement. So just to break that down a bit, engagement in this context means establishing a professional, trusting relationship between the client and the provider by working to understand the client's own unique situation and story as a means of building and strengthening that rapport and identifying the intervention that works best for that. Oftentimes when we approach clients, our outreach teams have such a great reputation with our clients in the community that they instantly recognize our teams and know them as the ones who are going to get them connected with housing. And so sometimes on that first interaction alone, they will be ready and willing for our team to guide them towards housing. However, not all of our clients may be familiar with who we are and what we do, or maybe they have been burned by the system so many times and have had doors shut in their faces to the point that they don't want to talk with us, they don't want to hear about housing, or whatever the case may be. And when a client isn't presenting in this manner, this is what we call pre-engagement, which can include what we refer to as light touch assistance. So this could include providing information about outreach services or scheduling a follow-up appointment to talk more, or providing basic needs items like a snack pack or a hygiene pack to help build that trust. Because we know consistency and helpfulness is very important to our clients. Oftentimes, they are approached by so many different people in the community who may or may not have been the most helpful to them, or just took their personal information and never came back to talk to them again. So there can be that sense of, how can I trust you? How can I trust that you're going to come back? How can I trust that you're going to help me when so many others in my life have let me down? So when you're still in pre-engagement with a client, outreach probably isn't going to assess the client for a housing solution on the first encounter, unless they know the client is ready and interested in doing so. So it may take repeated efforts over time to build that trust for the client to open up and share personal information about themselves, which makes total sense. And as I mentioned, the progressive engagement approach, it's designed to support the individual and their unique situation. So some folks may not need or want more intensive services, while others might want that. And that's why some people refer to this approach as the Goldilocks approach, since this method strives to provide just the right amount of assistance to each client. So for example, sometimes someone who just recently lost their job and became homeless, and just needs employment assistance to get back on their feet may just need a light touch approach. They may be overwhelmed or even offended if you were to suggest that they needed more intensive supports like case management or long-term housing, because some folks have a lot of pride and it's hard for them to accept help, so they just want more of a quick step up. Whereas someone who's been homeless for many years, has a mental health condition, maybe using drugs or alcohol, maybe they need more intensive services that case management and long-term housing can provide. So we really just want to make sure that we're taking the time to listen to each and every client and show up free of judgment or any preconceived notions about what they may be going through and what's best for them. Next slide. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but there are practice standards for how we conduct this work. So we spoke a bit about progressive engagement as one approach, but I did want to highlight a couple others. So our street outreach teams are housing focused, which means that their main objective is to help clients make connections to stable housing with tailored services and supports of their choice, such as health and behavioral health care, transportation, access to benefits, and more. Street outreach does not require individuals to enter emergency shelter or transitional housing as an interim step or prerequisite to access stable housing if they don't want to. However, street outreach does make immediate connections to emergency shelter, temporary housing, to provide safe options for those who are interested while they await their pathway towards stability. But otherwise, they don't need to be sober or on medications or in treatment or anything like that. And street outreach efforts are also coordinated with the broader network of programs, services, or staff who are likely to encounter individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness, but whose regular focus is broader than that. So this might include partnerships with law enforcement and other first responders, hospitals, health and behavioral health care providers, child welfare agencies, homeless education liaisons, workforce systems, faith-based organizations, and other providers like that. So I like to think that even when the clients are on the streets, we are building an integrated care team around them of supports from multiple disciplines. So that care and support can happen wherever they're at in the housing process. So with that, I am going to pass it off to Allison Holman, our outreach team lead, who is going to share more about a couple of these practices and what the pathway to housing looks like on the front lines.
All right, thank you, Kelly. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay, you might be wondering how we locate our clients, how we approach them. What's this process look like? One of the things that we do in the downtown and midtown area, we have what we call hotspots. So these are locations where we have identified a number of people who are gathering throughout the day. They're sleeping there at night. It's really in the area where they might be spread out along the street. There might be some people who are congregating together. But these are spots that we want to hit up on a regular basis. We want to be out there at the same day, same time every week. It's going to help build the rapport that Kelly's been talking about. If we tell our clients that we're going to help them with something, we want to do that. And we want them to know that they can return to this spot at the same time and we're going to be there. We always want to follow through with what we tell our clients that we're working on for them. I put a map up here. It shows some of the hot spots in downtown and midtown, just so you can get a general idea of where they are and kind of what we're referring to here. In downtown, we have several hot spots, just a couple of them, right near Minute Maid Park. Under the bridge there, we usually see a large gathering of people. We also have Discovery Green, Tranquility Park, the tunnels by the aquarium. We tend to see a lot of people who are there throughout the day and the evening. In our midtown locations, along the Main Street, the rail line, same goes for downtown. Along Main Street, there's going to be several people. Also over at Main and Blodgett, which is going to be the bridge under 59, and then right there at the 59 spur, we tend to see a lot of people during the day who are staying there and some at night. Something to remember with these hotspots is sometimes the people who we see are not experiencing homelessness. They are hanging out during the day. Maybe they have friends in the area, or that's just the spot of town where they like to be. So sometimes it can look like there are a large number of people experiencing homelessness in a certain area. And we know that that's not always true. But we go to these hot spots to engage with the people who are there so that we can get in there and figure out who needs help, who is experiencing homelessness, who's there just visiting their friends and chatting for the day. So that's what we're there to do, see who's in the area and figure out how we can help them. Next slide, please. Okay, our encampments. Here are a couple of pictures of some encampments that are in the area. We have one that's over by Lord of the Streets in Midtown. One of these locations is in the 5th Ward. We have one of our PATH team members who's out there working to connect clients with mental health. And the last one is one of our encampments, a very large encampment that we work to decommission. Many tents out there. It took a long time to work with all those clients to get them ready for housing. Next slide, please. Okay, so what does it look like when you're working with an encampment? Our encampments vary in size. We have small encampments that are 3 to 9 tents or structures. We have large encampments who are 10 or more. The difference between an encampment location and a hotspot is that our encampments have the structures. They have tents up. They've made some type of shelter out of cardboard boxes, whatever it may be. So that's what separates hotspot from an encampment, the structures. So when we have decommissionings of encampments, the first thing that's going to happen is our engagement teams and our outreach teams are going to go into the encampment. They're going to talk with the clients. They're going to engage with them the same way outreach happens at the hotspots and throughout the area of Houston. I'm really going to work with them and let them know what's happening, what this process is going to look like. They're going to help them get their documents that they need for housing. They're going to explain what the next step looks like. We're going to be in here for several weeks working with everybody, and then the decommissioning is going to start. A great thing about Houston is that when we have an encampment decommissioning, everyone who is in that encampment is offered a place to go. Usually they'll go to our navigation center while they're waiting for their permanent housing to come through. That is something that I love. It's very unique to Houston. I know there are other cities that do it as well. Sometimes people could think with the decommissioning that we're just coming in there with law enforcement and telling everyone that they have to get out and throwing their things away. And that's not true. Our clients who are in those encampments are well aware of what's going on. We are able to assist them with packing up their belongings. If they have a lot of things and they can't all go with them to the navigation center, or maybe they're just not needed right now, our teams will help sort through those items, bag them up, and we take them to city storage. We have a lot of belongings in city storage from encampments. Our clients are free to access those anytime that the storage unit is open. If there's something they need, they can go back and get it. So it's just another thing that helps reassure our clients that, we're moving you right now to give you a place to stay while you're waiting for your housing, but we're going to have these belongings that are important to you when you do obtain your housing. And I think that really helps our clients know that they're not losing everything by moving from the encampment. So with the decommissioning, once we help them back up their belongings, get them to city storage, we're going to help transport them to the navigation center. Metro is one of our great partners in that. We take them directly to the center, help them get registered and feel comfortable with where they're going. We partner with HPD. They are there on site. One, just to have a safety presence there. They also help enforce our work. If there's anyone who's out there who, is not happy with what we're doing, it gives us an opportunity to explain what we're doing, like I am with you right now. And also they help clean the area. TxDOT comes in as well. Once everyone is gone from the encampment, they bring out the bulldozers and they are clearing the tents, getting everything thrown away, making sure that it's safe again. And we want to make sure that once we get that encampment cleared out, that people are not returning to the area. That's something that we tend to see, and we try to be very aware of that. We call it backfill. Get an area cleaned, and then, a few days later, a week later, we see some more tents are popping up. So that's when it's really important for our outreach teams to go back to those locations and engage with the clients who they see, talk to them, make sure they're connected with housing, and of course, try to get them into housing and to prevent that backfill from happening. Next slide, please. Okay, here are some pictures I want to share with you guys about some decommissionings that we've done in the past. This is under 59 at Runnels in Hamilton. It's near Star of Hope, if you're familiar where that is. This is the before picture when we were getting in there and trying to start the decommissioning. Next slide, please. And this is after it is completely cleared and clean. So that's what you'll see if you go by a location where you normally see tents and structures, and then it's cleared, that decommissioning's happened, and know that everyone who was there was offered a place to go. Next slide, please. All right, we cannot do this without our partners. We have many partner agencies, community partners, and here's just a few pictures of us during some encampment decommissionings. There's Lyft, like I mentioned, they help us get our clients to the navigation center. We've got our HOT team there. They work so well with our clients. Our clients love the HOT team officers. That's homeless outreach team. They work directly with our clients to help them get identification. They don't enforce the law. If there's a law that needs to be enforced, they call another team to do that. So when our clients see them, they run to them. They're happy to talk with them. We've also got partners with the Coalition, Avenue 360, just to name a few. Next slide, please. Okay, a couple more pictures here. Of course, there's our cute dog. He was part of a decommissioning for an encampment that we call the Grove. Very sweet dog. These two pictures here with other clients, these were part of a decommissioning that happened near Minute Maid Park and near our search building. These clients were assisted with their belongings and taken to the navigation center. The client who was on the left, this individual had a lot of belongings. She had been residing in the same place for many months, kept getting more and more things. And one of our encampment outreach specialists worked really closely with her to help her part with some of her belongings and be comfortable to go to the navigation center. So that was a really great moment when she agreed that the navigation center was going to be the best place for her. She was very insistent that where she was okay. And the more that we talked to her about her health and safety and the amenities at the navigation center, she made the decision on her own that that's where she wanted to go. So that was a great day. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do you get from experiencing homelessness to getting housed? It is a process, and it takes a lot of support from our outreach workers to help our clients understand the process and help them through the process with IDs and whatever it may be. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first step to start the housing process. Kelly mentioned our initial engagement when we see a client on outreach. We kind of want to test the waters. Are they interested in housing? Are they, annoyed that we're talking to them. So that's why that engagement's really important, that we continue to show up. So if a client is ready, they're ready to move towards housing, that first thing that we're going to do is what we call a coordinated access assessment. It's commonly referred to as a housing assessment. It's the same thing. So this assessment is conducted by a trained outreach specialist. We have Tori here, she's on our Midtown team. So what the assessment does is it's going to ask a lot of personal information. We want to make sure our clients know that up front. And the information that they share helps determine their vulnerability level, which helps us know their need for housing. We always want to make sure that we are able to house individuals who are most likely to die on the street if they're not housed. So the assessment goes through mental health, medical health history, numerous things, and then it provides information so that the appropriate housing program and housing referral can be assigned to them. So after the assessment's done, there are documents that clients have to have in order to be housed. They have to have these to apply for vouchers, to apply for an apartment. It's going to be your ID, social security card, birth certificate, verification of homelessness. That's something that we have to have to show that that someone really is experiencing homelessness. Some programs also require a verification of disability. So we've got to help our clients connect with the doctor to be able to receive that. So once they obtain all their navigation documents, and they receive their housing referral, they'll be connected with a housing navigator. This housing navigator is going to be the person who assists the client with applying for the voucher, apartment, sign the lease, everything through that process. That process can sometimes take a while. So it's really important for that housing navigator to be there and support the client through things that might be stressful. Unlike any of us have experienced trying to apply for an apartment, it can be tedious, and it helps to have someone there to help you through that process. So after they sign the lease, the client's going to be given a housing case manager. This housing case manager is going to stay with the client the entire time that they remain in their housing. They are there to check in with them at least monthly, help provide additional supports. Where are food banks if they're needing assistance with some type of utility? Where are the resources? So they're really an essential asset that's needed for our clients once they're housed. Next slide, please. Okay, I mentioned the verification of homelessness. Verification of homelessness is required by HUD. We have to show that a client is truly experiencing homelessness. This is something that you can help us with. If there is an individual who has been experiencing homelessness, they have been connected with an outreach worker, they've had their housing assessment completed, they're going to need this document. If they've been experiencing homelessness for 12 months or more in the last 3 years, they have to have this verification of homelessness before they can be placed on the by name list for housing. So the client may have been assessed, but they're not making progress because they're not on the list until they get this document. It can be confusing to fill out. So I'll go through a few things here, but if you're ever asked to fill this out for a client, please feel free to reach out to us. I'm more than happy to help you get this filled out correctly. So the main thing that we're looking for, obviously your name, the name of the client. It's important that we know where they're staying. So it may be, they're staying at the bus stop at this intersection, or they're staying behind the building located at this address. And we need to know when you've seen them. We need to have a specific month and day for each month that you're verifying. And it may not be all 12 months, maybe you saw them for 2 months, but whatever you're verifying, we do need a specific month and day for that. We'll also list, your contact information, how you know the client. We cannot have third-party verifications from people who are related to our clients or who are friends with our clients. So we really help brainstorm with the client about who they can connect with. Sometimes we hear that, they don't connect with a lot of people, they keep to themselves. Is there a gas station that you go to? Is there an attendant that you see frequently, a security guard? So once we really start helping the client brainstorm, they're usually able to identify someone who can help them fill this out. Next slide, please. Okay, more ways that you can help. I just mentioned the verification of homelessness. That is an excellent way for you to help people that who are experiencing homelessness. Donate to providers like Search. We've received very little state and local funding. Our government funding is fixed, so that's not going to adjust, as needs increase. So a lot of our donations that fill the gap are going to come from donors. So we really appreciate that support so that we can continue to provide our services to our clients. Network. So we have landlords who are very willing to work with our clients. They enjoy working with Search. We know there are a lot more landlords out there who just don't know about the need for affordable housing. They're not sure what that looks like to start working with our population. So we're more than willing to provide information, kind of walk them through the process, what they can expect. We're always looking for new landlords so that we can provide as many opportunities to our clients as possible to help them select the area of town they'd like to live in, and just to have that freedom of choice. Advocate and educate. Get connected with organizations and educate. You guys came here to our series today to learn more. If you have people that that are questioning about homelessness, some of the myths that Kelly busted earlier, she shared the facts with you. And so now you also have that opportunity when you hear some things about homelessness that you've learned today are not true. Now you have the information that you can share with other people to really get that conversation going, about homelessness in our area and things that you could do to help support it and help our mission. Next slide. All right. We've come to our questions. Kelly, you going to take over that?
Sure. Yes.
Right.
What questions do we have about any of the material we covered or anything that's just coming up for you?
So I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box. So if you do have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and just ask, or you can drop it in the chat box. Kelly and Allison, thank you all so much. That was fabulous. Questions?
While folks are thinking of their questions, I just want to give a big shout out to everybody in the chat box who entered their information. Just seeing everyone from different backgrounds kind of coming together to learn more about the work that we do and how to support each other in this. Everything from other homeless service providers they see, folks who have donated to us, people who are just curious to learn more because they saw this on an email. So just really want to thank you guys so much for taking the opportunity to plug in and just, help, learn more about how you can support this effort.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is the verification of homelessness form on our website? I don't believe that is, but there is contact information for several of us, as well as the info at Search Homeless, where you can always reach out to us for that. And we are about to be redoing our website, so we can think about adding that. So,
hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tammy Guidry. I'm the Director of Homeless Services with Marcellus Williams Resource Center. We're located in Highlands, which is East Harris County. We service the East Harris County area, Baytown, Crosby, Channelview, North Shore, all the way into Chambers County. The resources out here for the homeless in East Harris County is very limited. There's only one shelter out here, which is Bay Area Homeless Services. And my question is, if I had clients that are interested in housing, because the housing situation out here on this side of town is very bad, can I refer them to you guys for housing assistance? We're not a part of the coalition of the homeless yet. We're going to be working on getting to be part of that. But if I do have clients that are interested in housing, can I refer them to you guys to assist with housing assessments and so forth?
So you can definitely refer clients over to Search. We have walk-in hours Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 11:30. At that time, we can meet with the individual and figure out, exactly what they need. We do have a lot of people that come to Search for housing assessments, and we are not able to conduct housing assessments on site. Our housing assessments through Search are going to be conducted in the field with an outreach specialist. So if clients are coming here specifically for that, We're going to share out information for them about, how they can get assessed, about connecting with outreach workers in the field, kind of let them know the areas of town that we're in. But unfortunately, we cannot do those in-house at this time.
Yeah, and we're happy to, kind of, figure out like which outreach team in the community, who is, who's outreaching in that area and get plugged in. I'm so glad to hear that you're going to be connected with the Coalition for the Homeless, and I definitely reach out to them as well when we get community calls about areas that we're not necessarily as like involved in. They're able to kind of like point the right direction, whether either they, will jump in to provide outreach in a particular area, or know another organization that is particularly familiar with the area.
Kelly, Allison,
There's a
there's a question
question.
from Greg. I don't know if you see that.
Yes, I thought. Yes.
Allison, you
So,
mentioned something about 12 months.
yes. So, a person does not need to be experiencing homelessness for at least 12 months. One night on the street counts as experiencing homelessness. The 12 months that I was referring to was specifically for that verification of homelessness. Just giving an example of clients who have been experiencing clients for 12 months or more, and they have a disability. They're what are considered chronically homeless. So that verification of housing form is specifically needed for those individuals to be placed on the by name list. For other people who have been experiencing homelessness for a day, several months, there are different type of housing programs to support that need. We have a diversion program that helps assist individuals, identify support services, find ways that they might possibly self-resolve on their own. We have rapid rehousing programs that provide housing assistance for up to a year. We also have our permanent supported housing that will support our chronically homeless clients as long as they need it to help them sustain housing.
Yeah, so Greg, as Allison said, our permanent supportive housing program is the most intensive of the different options. And for the permanent supportive housing program, you do need to qualify as chronically homeless, which requires that long-term homelessness combined with the disabling condition. And then, for those who do not meet those qualifications, there are other programs and options. How does one apply for employment or volunteer work? Okay. Yes. We have some of our job postings are on the United Way website. They are on our website, which I dropped into the chat box. That's searchhomeless.org. And there's a lot of information available on our website as well about volunteer opportunities. But you can also reach out to me for that. I will drop my email into the chat box as well. And so, we have various different volunteer opportunities. But one of the things that we really try to do as we move our clients into housing is help them to build their stability and to build community and their own support network. And so we are doing various engagement opportunities out the housing sites to help our clients build community with each other as well as with the broader community. So we would love to connect with y'all if you're interested in working here or volunteering here. That is mine. Any other questions? Y'all make it get a few minutes back in your day, in your hour. But I want to one of the things we really talked about a lot was Houston has done such a beautiful job, but the optics do not always line up with that. And, these encampments that have been around town are really a relatively new thing for Houston. And so I think a lot of people have the sense that homelessness is getting worse, and not better when that is not the case at all. It's just that the homelessness that we have today is much more concentrated and it's much more visible. So it may appear that way. And we're seeing the people who are out on the street. What we are not seeing are the 30,000 people who are now safely in homes of their own. So. Right. So are the number of young adults 18 to 25 increasing in the homeless population?
I can definitely take that one. Yeah, so, as I mentioned earlier, youth and young adults present differently when it comes to homelessness, right? And so, I think, I'm not 100% certain, right, without kind of seeing kind of the recent or more current data of whether that's increasing, but I can say that, in having to be more unique in our approach, right, to be able to really reach those folks, who are experiencing homelessness, right? Because it looks different. They're usually, couch surfing, like I mentioned, and so they're not always as visible in the ways that we see our older adult clients. And so we've partnered with different, we're like partnering with HISD and with Montrose Grace Place and Salvation Army's YARC program, and other, youth serving organizations who know where homeless youth are for us to be able to plug into and to be able to connect with. So that has been a pretty unique journey, and we're continuing to be creative in our approach to be able to reach these folks. But I think the other thing too is that, our youth and young adults really communicate via word of mouth, right? So if they have an experience with search, they tell their friends about the experience too. So I have to say, since we've started or launched this program, we have had more young adult clients visiting our doors, coming in during our walk-in hours, seeking services. I met with 18-year-old just a couple weeks ago, who he just recently became homeless in January of this year. And he said he was kicked out of his stepmom's house, had nowhere else to go. So he was just kind of hanging out in downtown. By chance, kind of ran into an older adult client who kind of helped show him the ropes of homelessness and was like, hey, here's search, next door they got Loaves and Fishes. Here's where you can go get a meal. And like, helping him to figure that out. Because as you can imagine, that was a very, traumatic, overwhelming experience, and being so young and not knowing where to start. And so, fortunately, we were able to get our youth program plugged in with him to follow up with him. And we're already in the process of getting him connected to youth specific services. But I have a feeling that is, kind of the point in time, homeless count data comes out, and as we continue to really dive into this work, I think that the figures will be very interesting to kind of see what youth homeless really looks like in terms of the data.
Kelly, Greg is asking a good question. Does a single mom with 5 kids take priority over a single male adult who's out on the street when it comes to housing eligibility?
Yeah, I wish it was a simple yes or no answer. And unfortunately, it's not, right? Because as Allison mentioned earlier, there are different factors that go into assessing someone's level of vulnerability. So right, it could be, length of time homelessness. Is somebody fleeing violence? Does somebody have a physical or mental health disability? So different factors there are going to triage individuals or families based on their circumstances. The other thing too is it also comes down to what we've emphasized time and time again throughout the presentation about affordable housing options, right? So if what's available at the time is just SRO, or what's called single room occupancy, or a 1-bedroom apartment, right? It's not necessarily going to accommodate a family with multiple children, right? Especially of different ages. And so, so that may go to the single male adult, right? Because that's just what's available. So being able to make those connections, right, for us to get plugged in with more landlords who can offer up, units for families, can really play a role in being able to move families faster and more efficiently into housing.
Great. Okay. Valerie, you had asked about our outreach schedules. We don't publish those for a variety of safety reasons, but if you want more specifics, please feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you with Allison or Kelly. So, okay, I think that is it on the questions. Thank you again so much for joining us today. I do want to quickly just share another engagement opportunity that we have coming up. We will be having an open house at our House of Tiny Treasures preschool on June the 6th at 10 a.m. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me as well. You know, very different from all the things that we talked about today, but our preschool is really about breaking the cycle by investing in the next generation. So again, anyway, thank you all for being here today, and we hope to see all of you again soon.
Thank y'all.